Okay, so I'm starting from very beginning. So first, explain API-led connectivity. So in API-led connectivity, we have three layer: system layer, process layer, and experience layer. System layer is responsible to connect with external system like Salesforce, database, file, FTP, JMS, and third-party API. Process layer is work as a intermediate between system layer and experience layer, and we apply all the business logic in process layer. Okay, and on top of that we have experience layer which is responsible to expose our API to external world, to different experience system. Experience system can be mobile application, web application, any company specific device. So this these all can be different experience system. On security policy wise, our experience layer should be more secure compared to process and system layer. Since process and system layer we do internal call only, mostly we do internal call. So and experience system will be exposed to external world. So we apply all the we apply more security on experience layer. So what kind of security we can put? We can put JWT token or auth, and apart of that we can put rate limiting, basic authentication, or client ID enforcement. On process layer, as I told, this process layer will be internally called. So here we apply only mostly basic authentication or client ID enforcement. On system layer, we should apply basic authentication, client ID enforcement. A part of that we can use rate limiting also, since many time we will have some SLA with external system. So if that external system will have some SLA, like you can call their external system more than 30 times in a minute. So we should not call more than 30 times in a minute. In that case, we can apply rate limiting on system API or spike control on system API. Okay. Next, in the project, from which layer of API in the project from which layer of API cycle is used, explain the process from create API using RAML and to expose them into application. Exposing them in application. So first part I'm not sure, it seems they are asking which layer you worked. So whenever they will ask which layer you worked, so you can tell them you have working experience in all three layer. Many places you work on system API, many places you worked on process API, many places you worked on experience API. Okay, and now they are asking like from RAML to developing API, you need to tell them process. So first you will create RAML and you will publish on Exchange. Then BA people or your lead will review that RAML, and then they will give feedback. Based on feedback, either you will go for development or you will go for same cycle. If feedback is negative, then again you will update your RAML, you will publish on Exchange, and you will ask for feedback again. If it is positive feedback, then you will go for development. So in development phase, like you will do development and then you will do different kind of testing. So in testing, generally we do unit testing, integration testing, unit testing. Okay, so unit testing means you are testing your API individually. Integration testing means you are like whoever means whatever API are interacting with each other, you are testing those API plus integration with external system also, like your source system is front end and your target system is Salesforce. So you are sending request from source front end system till Salesforce, you are monitoring everything. So that kind of testing is integration testing. Generally, like testing team do this kind of testing, and this is known as SIT, simple integration testing. And then we do unit testing where we automate our testing process, and it tells us about code coverage in unit testing. Okay, then what is RAML and its feature? So RAML is RESTful API modeling language where which completely describe our behavior of our API. Okay, so it consists of multiple it consists multiple component like resource detail, request, response, and underlying data type. So inside inside resource detail, we define resource name, what kind of method it will support, okay, what kind of URI parameter it will support, all those things we define there. Then in request we define what will be a request structure, what will be data inside header, what will be data inside query parameter, what will be data inside body. So all those things we define there. In response we define what that API will send response back. We define structure of response, and underlying data type tells data structure of request and response. Okay, and its features. So RAML's features. Okay, I think it's talking about like what all capability RAML has or what kind of best practices we can use. Okay, so here in RAML we can create traits, fragment, data type. So these all are like reusable component of RAML. So we can create this component to make reuse of our components, and we have fragment also where we can define reusable component like traits, data type, and that can be used by multiple RAMLs. Next, AnyPoint MQ. So MuleSoft provide their own MQ, that is AnyPoint MQ, and to use this AnyPoint MQ you should have separate license. It will not come inside Cloud Hub license. So if you want to use AnyPoint MQ, then you have to use, you need to take license of this AnyPoint MQ. Okay, now this AnyPoint MQ supports multiple operation like publish, subscribe, publish, consume. Okay, so a publish operation will use to publish your message inside AnyPoint MQ. Consume operation will use to consume data from AnyPoint MQ, and publish, subscribe is used to publish and consume data from AnyPoint MQ. Why queue is used in MuleSoft? Okay, so next, like we use queue in MuleSoft whenever we want to async, we want to make our process async. For example, we are getting request from source system and we are getting thousands of requests, but target system is not capable to handle all the 1,000 requests at a time. They have some SLA, they have some capability, they have some capacity. Okay, so what we can do in that case, we can break this process into two parts, where first process will read data from source system and it will publish data in queue. Now another part, another API will consume message from queue based on the target system capability, and it will process those data accordingly. So generally we use this queue to make our process async, and it follow it follow concept of FIFO, first in first out. Okay, next, map and map object. So these two are DataWeave function which is used to iterate on array or object. So map function iterates on each element of array, and we can do required mapping on each element of array. Map function will take input as a array and it will iterate on each element of array and it will return array as a output. And map object function iterate on each element of object. So it will take input as a object and it will iterate on each element of that object. And as a response, it will give array only. Then different type of flow in MuleSoft. So in MuleSoft, we have three kind of flow. First flow, then subflow, and then private flow. MuleSoft flow component we use to define other MuleSoft component. It contains three parts: source, process, and error handler. So source part, where we like define from where our processing, API processing will start. It can be REST API, then we will use HTTP listener. If it will start from file-based system, then source will contain file connector. if our processing will start from it, our processing is scheduler based, then we will use scheduler component. So source will use to how we are going to expose our API, and then we have processor where we apply, where we define all the business logic, and then inside error handling we handle if there will be any error in our flow. So this contain three components: source, processor, error handling. Now next, subflow. Subflow is a MuleSoft component which contain only processor. Here we can't, we don't have any source and we don't have any error handler. So always if there will be any error, then it will be handled by its parent flow or its parent flow only, and this subflow can be called by parent subflow or parent flow. Next we have private flow. So private flow is nothing but its flow. If any flow will not contain any source, then that flow is known as private flow, since we define that flow for internal use only. So like this we have three flow component in MuleSoft. Different type of exception handling in Mule. Okay, so in MuleSoft we have default, process level, and global error handling or exception handling. Okay, so default one, it's a inbuilt MuleSoft error handling. If you will not define any error handling, then whenever error will occur, it will be catched by default error handling, and default error handling contains empty on error propagate. Okay, so it will catch error and it will send error response. On error propagate, what it do? It catch error and it send error response. And it contain empty on error propagate means there will not be any component inside that on error propagate. Next we have flow level error handling. So whenever we define error handling inside the flow, then that's known as process level error handling or flow level error handling. So that error handling cannot be used by any other flow. That will be used by only only particular flow where we are defining. And then we have global error handling, which we define globally and can be used by one or multiple flows. Okay, so if anyone has any query till this point, let me know.
Ravi, like active and
ActiveMQ is different. ActiveMQ is, I think it's provided by Oracle Active AQ. I think you are talking about Oracle AQ, correct?
Yeah, ActiveMQ and AnyPointMQ. Yeah, both are different, right?
Yeah. ActiveMQ or ActiveAQ? Let me check.
ActiveMQ.
Okay, let me check. ActiveMQ is provided by Oracle or let me see who is the owner of this. Okay, I think this is a Apache product. License Apache. Yeah, this is Apache product. This is not AnyPoint product. Developer Apache software. Okay, any other query?
Yeah, like how this AMS and this ActiveMQ are related here.
Sorry.
How JMS and ActiveMQ are related here, like any MQ? Or both are the same?
No, all see, based on vendor they will give you capability and like functionality. Okay, they will have different property, and each property will have their own meaning. Okay, so each like each messaging queue, like for example your messaging queue, whatever messaging queue are there, almost all has similar kind of capability. Only slight difference will be there, but it depends on whatever system you are going to, like which system you are going to integrate, that system support which queue. For example, you are going to connect with any IBM system, so they will definitely support their IBM MQ. Okay, and in that case you will be bound to use IBM MQ connector. Okay, if you are going to connect with any other third party, so they are using this JMS queue, then you should go with this JMS queue. You have to use this JMS queue. But on difference wise, if you will ask, then there are very slight difference between each queue, means whatever queue you can see. Okay, so means very slight
You
difference
mean,
will be there.
okay, you mean in the JMS we can configure any MQ, like it can be an Anypoint MQ or it can be an Apache MQ, right?
Yeah, so you need to select driver, so you need to select proper.
Yes.
So if you will use
Okay, it's a
that.
kind of database where we use the different database like SQL or
Okay.
Oracle, like that, right?
No,
Like
no,
that
no,
here
no,
we
no,
can use
no, no,
different
not
MQs,
exactly,
or
not
it is different.
no, not exactly. So if you will see here, for each MQ, different connectors are there. So for IBM MQ, you will get IBM MQ connector. For Anypoint MQ, you will get Anypoint MQ connector. For Oracle AQ, I think there is separate. If you will not get any separate connector, in that case, you can use native one, that is JMS one. So here only you can see for JMS we have this. For Anypoint, it's not here. Let's see it. So Anypoint MQ, we have Anypoint MQ. For IBM MQ, you will get separate connector. Okay. So for most of the MQ, you will get separate connector. It's not very similar to database. Okay. In database, I think one connector will be enough to handle all kind of database. But here, we have separate MQ. Sorry, connectors. Okay, and if there is no such MQ are available, few connector are available, then you can use JMS, and there will be some workaround. You can't use JMS directly, there will be some workaround. So here you can see for active MQ, I think you have to connector this, you have to configure this particular Java library. Is it clear?
Oh, okay, Ravi.
Okay, so next, difference between on error continue.
Can you explain the RAML features? Can you elaborate more?
So RAML features, I am not sure. Like it's asking about RAML, what all components we have inside RAML. I think they are talking about that. So that we already discussed, like what all things we define inside RAML. We define request, response, resource detail, underlying data type. These are four major components, or you can say features of RAML. And then you should mention about this whatever other component we have, reusable component, traits, data type, fragment, that you need to define. Okay, that we already discussed just now. Now difference between on error continue and on error propagate. So these two component we use to handle error in MuleSoft. So on error continue will catch error and it will send success response. Okay, and on error propagate is MuleSoft component, error handling component, which catch error of flow and which send error response only. So by default on error continue will send 200 status code, and by default on error propagate will send 500 status code. Okay, next, how can same exception handling be reused? So in that case we need to define global error handling, and we will define global error handler component there, and we can reuse at multiple flows. Auto discovery. So auto discovery ID is used to connect our API manager with runtime manager. Okay, so when you are deploying your application on runtime manager and when you are applying policy on API manager, how they will communicate with each other, how you will like we request will come to know which API manager is connected with which runtime manager. So we have this API auto discovery ID which is responsible to connect API manager to runtime manager. So whenever you publish any YAML on Exchange, you need to register that YAML on API manager, and then you will get one auto discovery ID which you need to configure inside global element of your Mule application, where you need to configure this API auto discovery ID. Okay, and once you will deploy on runtime, then that API auto discovery ID will help this API manager and runtime manager to communicate with each other.
Ravi, when do we need to use auto discovery and proxy?
Okay, so proxy is separate thing. So proxy actually whenever we follow this 3-layer architecture and you want to put all the non-functional requirement. Non-functional requirement means applying policy, applying SLA, applying security, all those things you don't want to put inside your code where you develop your business logic and where you did some mapping and all. In that case, we can, on top of our Experience API, we can develop one proxy API and we can apply all the non-functional requirement. But whatever layer you are increasing, it will impact your cost. Okay, since you need one more worker for this new proxy API. Okay, so whenever worker will increase, then it will increase your vcode, and you need like more vcodes, so it will increase your costing. So 80% project they don't use this proxy API anymore. They use only 3-layer architecture. Even many projects use 2-layer architecture only.
Okay, but the functionality wise, auto discovery and proxy will do same things, right? Auto discovery also used for managing the API, right? For applying policies, right? For proxy also same kind of thing, but extra, as you said, one more week or we have to add for proxy development of proxy service, right?
No.
You're saying
No.
any other difference?
No. First of all, your understanding is not correct here. So auto discovery ID we use to help this API manager and runtime manager to communicate with each other. Like how they will, like you are deploying your application on runtime manager and you are applying your policy on API manager. How they will come to know which runtime manager we are applying which policy. Means what on runtime manager we deployed one API. So on that API, what policy we applied on API manager. How they will know each other, like how they will communicate or how they will know this policy is applied on this API deployed on this particular worker. So that API auto discovery ID help to do this communication. Okay, whenever request will come, so it will come for some API, So first you will go on API manager, and there you will check which API is API is registered for that particular miss sorry just give me 1 minute.
Okay, Ravi, if you want configure auto discovery, then we are not able to apply policy, right?
Yeah. Policy is applied on API manager. Okay.
Yeah. If we want to configure auto discovery,
Yes.
then in that case, we are not able to apply the policy, right? Or we can't manage our API, right?
Yes. Correct.
For managing purpose only, we are adding this auto discovery. Same like that, proxy also
No,
same
proxy.
purpose,
Who
right?
told you proxy is not for that purpose? Proxy is we are adding one more extra layer where we will put all the non-functional requirement. Okay. So proxy we are just adding one extra layer to apply our policy and security. Is it clear or not?
I'm little bit confusing. That's why, yeah.
See, you have one API and you have their API manager. Okay, you are applying your business logic also. You have applied business logic on and on same API. On API manager you are applying your policy. Okay, so this is your normal configuration. Now what you are doing for that API, on API manager you are not applying any policy. You created one more API on top of that proxy API, and you are applying business logic there. Sorry, you are applying policy there. You are not doing any business logic, you are just applying policy there. So that is proxy API. Simply you can understand, instead of applying policy on experience API, you are creating one more API on top of experience API, and you are applying policy for that API.
Okay, in proxy, how it will communicate one layer to this layer, same like that process API, system API kind of thing, or how it will communicate?
Yeah, same. So experience API. So in that case, you need to create proxy API. Okay, that proxy API will know that is special configuration that will know with which experience API I need to communicate.
Okay. 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 Okay, Ravi.
Okay, so now how can same that we already discussed. Different type of API policies.
Hi Ravi, I can't hear you.
Yeah, just give me 1 minute. Okay, fine. Then different type of API policy. So we have multiple policies like client ID enforcement. So these all are actually policy and security. Everything comes in one place only. So in API we have multiple policy like rate limiting, SLA based rate limiting, HTTP caching, spike control, then basic authentication. So these all policy are security policy. Basic authentication, then client ID enforcement, OAuth, JWT token. So these all are like policy we have in any point, like out of box policies are there. So total we have 16 policy. What does event consist of in a mule? So in mule event we have two part. One is attribute and other one is, so first one is message. Okay, so event contain message. Okay, and message contain two part, attribute and payload, and then we have another part that is variable. Okay, so MuleSoft event contain two part, message and variable. Message contain again two part, attribute and payload. Okay, next, difference between API manager and runtime manager. Okay, so API manager we use to manage our API, where we apply policy and securities. Okay, and runtime manager is plain, where we run our mule application. So it contains smallest unit as a worker, where we deploy our mule application. Again, worker has multiple category. It has 8 categories starting from 0.1 vCore to 16 vCore. Then query parameter and URI parameter. So in MuleSoft, whenever we define our YAML or whenever we define our API, so we have query parameter and URI parameter as a input parameter. So whenever we have filter condition, we want to pass filter condition for our API, then we use query parameter. And whenever we want to use unique identifier, okay, let's say I want to fetch all the employee detail where employee ID is this. Sorry, I want to fetch employee detail where employee ID is this. I want to fetch customer detail where customer ID is this. So these all are unique identifier. Customer ID or employee ID, this can be only one for one employee. So whenever you need to pass unique identifier, then we use URI parameter. And whenever we want some filter condition, for example, I want list of employee where salary is more than 50,000 and less than 1 lakh. So this is filter condition. In that case, we need with this query parameter. Different type of operation used in YAML. So in YAML, we have operation or method, you can say get, post, put, patch, delete. Get whenever we want to retrieve resource information, retrieve resource detail, then we use get. Post we use whenever we want to create new resource, then we use post operation. Put whenever we want to update whenever we want to create patch and put. Yeah, so patch operation we use whenever we want to do partial update of any resource. For example, I have one customer resource where I just want to update their address or few detail, then we use patch. And put operation, what it will do, either it will update complete information or it will create new record. Okay, so if that customer detail is already there, then it will completely replace or update the customer detail, or if that customer detail is not there, then it will create new customer detail with the help of put method. And delete method we use to delete any resource. Now you will say, if I want to retrieve resource, can I use post method? Technically you can use, there will not be any error. This is just a you can say API governance. So with the help of this, whoever consuming your API, they will able to understand, okay, you are using post method means you are creating new resource. If you will put that method name as a put also, that will do same behavior, and technically it will not give any kind of error, but it will create some misunderstanding for whoever consuming your API. Okay, that's why we should follow this API governance, and as per governance we have this method and we should use those methods for different purpose. Okay, but technically if you will use you will like use any method name, it will work. Then difference between put and post. So put we use to update or create new resource, to update completely resource or create new resource, and post method we use to create new resource. In YAML, can some field be defined optional? Yes, in YAML, like query parameter, URI parameter, or header or body, so anything you can define optional. What is object store? Okay, now object store is temporary storage in MuleSoft. It's a inbuilt component of MuleSoft. Okay, and it has its like whenever you store any data, you will store data here in the form of key value pair. Generally, whenever we want to store some generally we store whenever we want to store any token value or OTP kind of thing which we want to store for temporary purpose. Okay, in MuleSoft documentation they have given 2-3 scenario. That is very good scenario. Let me open that one. So storing synchronous information such as watermarks. Okay, storing temporary information such as access token, storing user information. So this kind of like temporary storage we can do inside object store. Okay, now they have asked what are the types of object store. Different type of object store. So in MuleSoft we have two kind of object store: object store v1 and object store v2. So object store v1 we use when we don't have any kind of clustering. So if you will use object store v1, then it will take memory inside your worker only. So that object store will take some space inside your worker, and that will be used by only that worker. Then that object store will not be shared by any other worker. But if you have clustering and all, where you have 2-3 worker which is doing, where you have deployed same Mule application, if you will do this, then your like caching will have some like you will not get exact behavior of caching in some same worker. Like sorry, you have worker A, worker B, and worker C. So worker A will cache some different data, worker B will cache some different data, and C will cache different data. So your application will not be synced with each other. So in that case, we should use object store v2, where object store v2 takes space outside of worker, and generally we use this object store v2 whenever we have this clustering deployment model. Whenever you are deploying more than one worker for your Mule application. Okay, so if anyone has any doubt, you can ask quickly.
Ravi, for deploying applications more than one instance, where can we configure this one during
that you can configure inside Jenkins pipeline, that you can configure inside your when you deploy manually. At that time also you can select number of workers.
The build.xml file is there, right? There do we need to configure, or how?
No, inside Jenkins you will get option when you will write Jenkins script. it will ask how many worker you want to deploy. So there you need to define. In RTF deployment or model also, whenever you will write a script, at that time it will ask where you want to deploy, how many worker you want to deploy. In manual deployment model also, you can select number of worker.
Okay. And here, Ravi, do you have any real time means scenario based questions? Actually, these are straightforward, right?
Yeah, I
So
took
people are asking scenario based more concentrating on. That's why.
yeah,
Do you have any scenario based kind of thing?
yeah, scenario based question are also there. It will come sequentially. Actually, I'm not customizing question. Whatever question they have asked in interview, I took directly those questions.
Okay, if you are preparing, also fine for scenario based, how they're going to
Yeah,
generally
that will come.
asking
Yeah,
scope. Yeah.
whatever collection I have, I got from different students. I will put all. It will take, actually we have planned for almost 20 to 30 interview. So definitely many other scenario based question will come, but it will take some time. I'm taking like whatever I have based on. So this question, like many interview it happen, like they will not ask scenario based question, they will ask. So this question, set of question asked in Accenture. It's not mandatory like every time they will ask scenario. So whenever other interview will come, they will ask scenario based question, you will get those question experience also. And again, for scenario based question, you will not have limited scenario, they can ask any. So in that case, you should have good understanding of MuleSoft concept. Okay, scenario vary from interviewer mind to mind. Okay, he can create scenario at during interview time, and you have to answer. So you should have good understanding of concept. Okay, fine then. So
Okay. Yeah.